Hey everyone, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today on our 2024 Ford Escape Hybrid, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit. Before we do that though, let's take a minute, we'll check these out and make sure they're going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I'd want to address one of the main questions that we get asked all the time in regards to setting up a flat tow. And that's, what parts am I going to need for my Escape to be able to flat tow it down the road safely? And there's a total of 5 main components. You'll have your base plate, your tow bar, your safety cables, your tow bar wiring, and your supplemental braking system. With the Escape 2, I always like to recommend what's called a towed vehicle battery charge line kit. With that said, here's a really good example on how a diode wiring kit is going to work. It's going to send the lighting functions from the back of your coach to the back of your Ford. That way people behind you know what's going on and you're safe and legal, right? So for example, we have the right turn signal going on our coach. Right turn signal is on back here at our tail light. Same's going to hold true for the left turn, your tail lights, as well as your brake lights. The diode kits are going to be compatible with the Escape Hybrid as well as the plug-in hybrid like we have here today. And when it comes to picking tow bar wiring, hands down, a diode kit is something that I always recommend. We do a ton of them on all different types of vehicles, and it's really rare that we ever run into any issues. So extremely reliable kits. With that in mind, you know, it's kind of a no-brainer too, because once it's installed, you're not going to really notice any changes, right? It still kind of maintains that factory appearance. And whenever you are ready to hook up and flat tow behind your motorhome, it's going to be really straightforward. When you are ready to use, you're just going to have to take one end of the cable, plug it into the connector on the front of your Escape, and plug the other end into the back of your motorhome. And that's all there is to it as far as getting the diodes ready for when you're going to flat tow. With that said, there are several different variations, and they're all a little bit different from each other. The main difference being what type of cable that you're going to get, and what one is going to work best for you really is largely dependent on your tow bar. So for example, the kit that we used here today, I like to call kind of the bare bones kit. You get the wiring, your diodes, some ins and outs. It doesn't come included with a cable or a 6-way round connector plug. And that's because our neighbor is using the Roadmaster Nighthawk tow bar, which comes with those components already. So using that bare bones kit makes a lot more sense, right? You don't have to buy parts that you already have. With that in mind though, let's say if you have a tow bar that has channels in it, right, but doesn't come with the cable or the connector, you could use this diode kit that comes with, it's called a hybrid cable, which is like this, coiled on one end, straight on the other. That way you can run it through the channels. Or there's a straight cable kit too. Either one of those will work just fine. And then for those of you whose tow bars do not have channels in it, you'd want to use a coiled kit like this. That way the cable will sit up high and tight off the ground when you're going straight, but give you that extra length that you need when you make those turns. So all of those that I just mentioned are going to have you know, the 7-way round connector on the motorhome side, 6-way round on the vehicle side, by far the most common. But there are a couple other options too. For whatever reason, if you want to use them, just thought I'd mention it. There's a coiled kit that has a 7-way round, 4-way round. And then one, let's say maybe if you have an older coach or something like that, and it only has a 4-way type flat connector on it, this is available too, 4 flat to 4 flat. Other than that, at the end of the day, really the way to go. You know, just overall reliability, how easy they are to use once you have them installed. It's just a no-brainer, you know, and there's so many, you know, handful of those different kit options. There's going to be something that's going to work for your particular setup. Now, as far as the installation goes, it's not really that it's complicated per se. It's definitely time consuming, just having to route wires from the front to the back and things like that. But take your time, you should be in pretty good shape. If this is something you're not comfortable doing, or you're having other parts set up at the same time, you can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can do something like this for you, but if you're gonna do it yourself, hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation for our diode wiring kit, we'll be working under the hood. I have our big bundle of wire, and we're gonna route this to the front of our vehicle. We're also installing a battery charge line kit, which is going to the same location, so I'm routing this at the same time. That's what this red wire is, in case you're wondering. But I just have it dropping straight down where it comes out through here. And our fascia is off. We're doing all this same time that we're doing our base plate. Makes it easier to route everything. Can be done, put back together though if you want. And I have it coming over here, and I give myself plenty of wire to work with. And that's because with this particular base plate and how the bracket mounts up for our connector plug, it's almost easier to get it started like this. Get the fascia on, put the wires through, and then set up our connectors. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Get the fascia put back in place and go from there. I got our fascia put back on, kind of see what I was talking about, with how our bracket mounts up and where the wiring comes through and everything like that. So from here, what you're gonna wanna do is take the rubber boot from your connector plug and slide that over your wiring. So I went ahead and hooked up our charge line wire. That's where it goes, right there in the middle if you're doing it. But for our diodes, what you want to do is separate the wires into individual strands. You'll peel them back a little ways. And something that I like to do here is just kind of cut the end off a little bit, give us a fresh start. And we'll strip each end of the insulation back a little bit, about like that. We'll give those wires a twist. So do the same thing for the remaining ends here. And as far as getting these hooked up, if you look at our connector plug, terminals are going to be labeled. So this one's TM for taillight, so the brown wire will go there. And what you want to do is take these set screws and back them out almost all the way. But then this next one, it's going to be GD for ground. White wire plugs into it. This one is LT for left turn, yellow wire goes there. RT for right turn, the green wire goes there. So we'll just grab the appropriate wire, place it into that terminal, and just tighten it down. I'll do the same thing for the rest of our wires. That's what the connector plug is going to look like once all of the wiring is hooked up to the back of it. And something that I like to do at the very end, once I know everything's working, I'll come back with some silicone and I'll pile it up on the terminals to prevent corrosion. But I like to wait, because if you have to get back in here, don't want to deal with a huge mess. So I'll put the boot back over, and for now we can mount this up to our bracket. Now that everything's wrapped up in the front, we move back to the engine compartment, and what we're going to do is ground our white wire. On the driver's side here on the frame rail, there's a bunch of factory grounds, so I'm just going to utilize one of them. So we'll very carefully cut just the white wire. Kind of peel these ends away here. And the end that you want to work with will be the side that's going to the connector plug. This is how we'll make all of our connections too, whether it be a ring terminal or a spade terminal, butt connector. They all work the same way. You just strip the wire back, twist it, In this case, you're going to take a ring terminal, put it over the bare end of the wire, crimp it down, and any of these grounds will work, honestly. I think I'm going to go with this one here, just kind of out of the way a little bit more. So it's an 8mm socket that I'm using. Get this bolt pulled out. We'll put the bolt through our ring terminal. Back through the factory ground too. And just simply tighten it back down. You want to take the remaining portion of the white wire on the harness that's connected to nothing and just peel that off completely. We'll hold on to it. We'll probably use it a little bit later on. But what I'll go ahead and do now, this wiring's gonna have to get routed all the way to the back, to the taillights. I'll go ahead and get started on that and then show you the path that I took to get it back there. Got our wiring routed, and the engine compartment, I just brought it up. I want to make a note too, if you have a braking system that ties into your diode wiring, like the Demco Stay and Play or the Roadmaster Invisibrake, for example, leave yourself a little loop up here, some working room to be able to tie into that. But with that said, I just ran it and dropped it straight down along the firewall. And especially in this area, you always want to do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts. Moving underneath our vehicle, this is where our wiring drops down, and every now and again, kind of where the wire is, you know, close to metal or anything like that, I put some wire loom on it just to give it an extra layer of protection. So that's what this black plastic is here. But I just have it running right over to here, and there's a big opening, this whole tube wide open, so I push the wire through it, where it comes out here, and then I have it slowly starting to kind of work its way underneath the vehicle. The wire just continues up along, up and over our subframe here. And at this point, what I did was separate the green wire from the yellow and brown. And the yellow and brown are just gonna stay over here on our driver's side. All right, but what I did, that extra piece of white wire that we had left over, I taped the white wire to that end, you know, ran it all the way up here to where these wires meet. And so the other end of the white wire and the green wire, that's gonna get routed over to the passenger side of our vehicle. So I just have it following this wire loom all the way over. We have it drop down right here, and we'll just let these wires hang for now. We can go up top and figure out what we need to do to get them all hooked up. You're going to want to open up your hatch, and that way we can get access to our taillight connectors behind these panels. So we'll first start by taking this floor covering. We'll pull that out, get it out of our way. And then we'll also have to pull this threshold off. There's going to be a couple of screws on this side of it. Here's what that screw looks like. You're just going to have one on each side of the threshold. It's a 7mm head. We'll pull that out. I already removed the one on the other side, and you should be able to just kind of pop up on this piece to get it removed. On our driver's side, I think this jack might be in the way. So we'll go ahead, unthread this, lift that up, and Just to be on the safe side too, I'll pull this bracket off. There's just 3 10mm head nuts. At this point we can start to free up this panel. So I'm just peeling back the weather stripping. And there's just plastic clips holding this in. When you get down here, you can actually kind of pry up on that. We don't need to remove this completely, just enough to kind of open things up and work back here. To make it easier to work, there's this little foam panel here. I'll just take a trim tool or screwdriver even work and just remove these push pin fasteners. Get that out of the way. And this is our taillight connector right here. I'm gonna do the same thing. They got the wires kind of secured down. If you pop them free, it'll be a lot easier to get everything hooked up. Like that. And at this point, what I'll do, all this tape here, I'll just peel that back a little ways. That'll make it easier to test and splice into. To test our wiring, I have a test light here, and I just put a little piece of wire on the end so I can kind of probe the back of the connector there. And we're looking for our taillight signal and our brake light signal. So I checked for the brake light signal already. That's going to be the red wire. As far as your taillight, you just probe the pins back there, and of course you want your taillights on. And that is the wire that has power. So we know that the green wire will be for our taillights. We'll unplug our wiring now, just push down on that connector, pull the two ends apart, and we're going to be working with the green and red wire here. So I'll cut those, and then on each end you want to strip it back, give the wire a twist, and then grab a blue spade terminal. You'll put that over the end of the wire and crimp it down. So I'll do that same thing for these 3 remaining ends here. We'll plug our diodes in. On one end of the diode, you'll have 2 terminals there. You want that to face the connector plug side. So we'll do that there. This one there. We'll just do color for color. So you got green to green, of course red to red. As far as getting our new wiring that's underneath the vehicle up in here, if you look right here, there's going to be a grommet, and I think that'll be perfect to utilize. I'll just be able to pop that out. And what I'll do, I'll just poke a little hole in there. That way we can push our wiring up through the hole, through the grommet, and push the grommet back into place. I got our wiring ran up. Once I pull that grommet out, just went underneath the vehicle, push the wires up from the bottom up. So nothing to it there. And then Stripped all the ends back. The new yellow wire you can crimp on a blue terminal. The white and brown you're going to strip back and then twist those together nice and tight. And on those you can take the yellow spade terminal and crimp both of those ends into this one connector. And these are going to get hooked up to the two remaining terminals on our diode. So since the factory green wire is our taillight signal, we'll take the white and brown, plug that in there. And since the red will control our stop and turn, we'll plug our new yellow wire in there, and then we'll take our factory connector, plug that back in. With everything hooked up over here, I went ahead and just kind of bundled everything up, used some zip ties to keep everything secure, and on the driver's side we can put everything back together the opposite way that we removed it. On the passenger side, we did things more or less the exact same way. We hooked up our diodes and got our wiring in place and everything like that. As far as the wire colors are concerned, the factory red wire, that's going to be our stop and turn. So I plugged the new green wire into it. And then the factory green wire, that's going to be our taillight signal. So I plugged our new white wire into that end. It's a good idea to test our wiring now to make sure that it's working properly. I just have a test box here that's simulating a motorhome. You can use your coach, but keep in mind if your coach has any issues, it could mislead you. I think it's something you did on the vehicle side. But with that in mind, we'll run through all of our functions. We'll try out our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brakes. With everything working, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit on our 2024 Ford Escape.